We just want to have these on the record, whether one person listens or 10,000 people listen. Look, we've even recently gone back and watched clips of us at 17, 18 years old doing this.
Pretty embarrassing.
This will also probably be embarrassing as well. But every week we're going to talk about our lessons from the week. You know, there should be some tangible takeaways. Hopefully you can learn from some of our mistakes, not have to make them, I suppose is a huge desire with this. We would have these conversations regardless anyways. It just happens now that there's a mic and a camera involved as well. Like, he would have had a social media marketing agency working with your Pepsis, your huge companies of the world. And I looked at the landscape of companies locally and just went, the content is terrible. It's all super low quality. I think we can personally step it up and really help.
This podcast is literally being built from scratch this morning.
Yes. We're just figuring out the camera gear.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Very, very easy to use, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we're all good to go. Right. Welcome to episode 1 of Built from Scratch with Mr. Erik Jentetics.
Hey, Mr. Daragh Jordan, how are we?
We're doing good. We're here on a nice Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, as usual in the office, grinding.
Kicking off our first podcast. Right. Firstly, we want to give quick introductions to ourselves, just in case you don't know who you are. Erik, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, my name is Erik. I'm a 24-year-old agency owner, and I'm also an advisor in a group of companies. And recently just dabbed into a little bit of real estate with Daragh and the car parking world. So yeah, that's pretty much me at the moment.
Yeah, and then on my side, I suppose Erik and I had started our first business together, which we'll get into now in a moment. I'm currently working on a SaaS company communication platform for executives, and again, like we said, we're involved in the car parking world, which we'll probably wade into more over the years. But again, I'm 23 years old, Erik's 24, and we've been doing this for about 6.5 years now.
6.5. It was just our anniversary last month, I believe.
Yeah, so actually 6 years. Yeah. So I suppose this podcast, our whole thing is that Erik and I have been having conversations most days for years, and we love talking about business. And I think that when we first started our journey, we had been documenting better, we've been recording more. And then we spent the last 3 years not really recording anything.
No, we kind of just zoned in and decided to, let's put a bit of work in the table, let's refine our business, let's refine ourselves and upskill ourselves. And then once we felt we had more to offer, more experiences to share, we feel now, I think, that we're ready to have some conversations around people that are looking to start their businesses, thinking about starting businesses or doing what they love, and maybe scaling their businesses, and looking to hear what, two youngsters have experienced over the last 6 years and how they've overcome challenges and what they're looking to weigh into. So I think that's our main goal of sharing our stories and, getting into this.
Yeah, like I suppose like we're learning and making mistakes every week, and having wins and having losses every week. And I think we just want to have these on the record, whether one person listens or 10,000 people listen. Our desire with this is that we can document this, and we can look back in 10 years time and we have it documented. Because again, look, we've even recently gone back and watched clips of us at 17, 18 years old doing this.
Pretty embarrassing.
Yes, it is. And this will also probably be embarrassing as well. But so I suppose, Erik, do you want to kick off about, I suppose we're going to start with how we know each other. Every week we're going to talk about our lessons from the week. So there should be some tangible takeaways. Hopefully you can learn from some of our mistakes, not have to make them, I suppose is a huge desire with this. And there's going to be an outlet for us just to talk and bounce off each other, because we would have these conversations regardless anyways. It just happens now that there's a mic and a camera involved as well. So I suppose, Erik, do you want to kick off about how we got to know each other originally?
How we met? Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting story. So myself and Daragh went to secondary school together, and that's where we met. In 2013, we started in a secondary school called Coláiste Baile in Claregalway, and it's, I suppose, a fact about the school is it's a fully digital school. So it was a Microsoft Showcase school, and that means we had laptops to study off. So we, I suppose, got a kickstart in terms of using technology and getting into all that sphere. And as the years gone by, I think myself and Daragh both became fairly passionate about the internet. See what it had to offer, see how technology and IT worked. So Daragh actually started a YouTube channel doing fitness videos. Yeah. And I sent him, in one of his videos, I think you mentioned you have huge ambitions of starting a business and dabbling into that. And I messengered you of like, hey, can I edit one of your videos or something? And
Shoot one of the videos, yeah.
Shoot one of your videos, and I went to your house, and that's how we kind of started talking.
Yeah.
And went there. Turned out I was a really poor editor, really poor videographer. Wasn't really for that, but yeah, we just started like, I think, getting to know each other, weighing into like, what's your interest, what's my interest, and I remember the first thing I said is like, Daragh, what if we started the Ryanair of video creation, do cheap videos at scale, but you get what you pay for? And your response was, well, that's a good idea in a way, but what's the point of giving a business or a person a video without having the purpose or telling them on how to actually monetize it or utilize it, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got started in terms of conversations around potentially dabbling into something. Now, I think to note at this point of conversation, I was working 2 jobs, working in hospitality and working in kind of like an IT role. And you were still doing your leaving cert.
Yeah, I was 17, you were 18.
Yeah.
I was doing my leaving cert. I was creating YouTube content as like an outlet because there was a guy I used to watch a lot more of it called Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, which I'd say some of you would definitely know.
Gary V era, wow.
Yeah, and he said, this is the first time in history you have access to the whole entire world in your pocket. Why aren't you using it? He also said, if you can't come up with an idea for a business, start posting content, because you'll actually learn a lot of fundamentals around that. And I had a real graw for psychology and marketing, so it was a really good outlet for me to learn about the content creation space and really start dabbling and testing, and I was reading books on it and stuff like that. So Erik was spitballing ideas around content. You rang me up and you were like, let's start doing gym reviews, and I'm like, I have no capacity to review gyms, but I do like the idea of starting a company and helping, because this is back in 2018. So like digital marketing now, digital marketing agencies or social media marketing agencies, SMMAs, are way more popular now. But back when we started,
nobody wanted to hear about social media. It was like, why do I need to post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah.
None, it was like, what do you guys do? This is just a waste of time. Like, how are you going to guarantee my ROI, or what are you guys going to do for us? And like, we nearly had to justify existence for about a year.
Even websites and stuff, like really until like 2019, 2020, do we even get any stride in that? But I'm not going to jump ahead there. But like really early days. But again, we had no idea. We had no track record. We were 2 fresh-faced kids.
Going around with a presentation, in our Surface Pro 1s, trying to justify it to hotels. And I still remember we went into a hotel pitching our social media services, and the guy looks at us, the general manager, and goes, do you guys do this for like a TY project, or is this like for fun?
Yeah.
And we just looked at, no, this is our full-time job. And the guy kind of laughed us out of the room a little bit. So I think that's how we jumped ahead there, but that's how we really met, is by just you starting video, you opening your arms and saying, here, internet, I'm just going to start doing something. And I think you really, just took the initiative on that. And then I was like, well, actually, I'm just hustling, because I had ambitions of becoming a pilot. Yeah. So I was just saving money, working 2 jobs, and, trying to build up a bit of cash, because pilot school is pretty expensive. And in my IT role, I suppose I definitely got a good taste on technology, invoicing, and everything like that, because I was kind of a sole trader in a way while being employed. So it was pretty, it's different. And then I remember one of our co-founders, Jack McKenna, we were like, oh my God, Jack McKenna's videos were really cool. He had some really cool vibes to it. He was a really good editor, capturing content. And me and Daragh were like, really afraid to ask Jack to get involved, because he was like way more successful on YouTube. And
he also was doing some videos for companies already. And
we were like, we're going to come to him, how much are we going to offer him, and everything like that. And it turns out Jack's like the soundest dude of all times. And he was like, let's, guys, I'm ready to rock. And I think we sat in a classroom, and we sat in the classroom. Remember, we were brainstorming ideas of, are we called More Media?
Yeah, Grow
Media. And we just kind of landed on the word Grafton, from Grafton Street. Always wanted to be remembered that we are an Irish company.
Yeah.
And then that's how, I suppose, probably Grafton Digital was born, right?
Yeah, like I suppose we looked at the landscape, and this is even through consumer Gary Vaynerchuk stuff. Like, he would have had a social media marketing agency working with your Pepsis, your huge companies of the world. And I looked at the landscape of companies locally and just went, the content is terrible. It's all super low quality. I think we can personally step it up and really help, because being Gen Z, we would be very tech native. Obviously, Erik had worked in the industry for a couple of years. He had some experience. And I'd also done some work experience in one of the bigger marketing agencies at the time, and really seen how they approach digital. And I didn't think they gave enough focus to it. It was actually really neglected, truthfully, because...
Right.
And I said, I think if we really focus on this, it's really going to be really important. And going to the next 10 years of business, having a strong digital presence is going to be super important. So we all banded together with Jack with his content, myself with kind of my more marketing interest, and you with IT and websites and stuff. And we're like, okay, let's be the three prongs to bring Graft and Digital together. We ideated the name of the company in room one of the original school.
Yep.
And we said we wanted a strong name that couldn't be lengthened, couldn't be shortened. And we always had ambitions of going global. So we wanted, even when we were a huge global company, that an Irish term would be involved with us. And again, as 17, because Jack was 16, 17, 18-year-olds, hilarious for us to say that, but it
was what it was.
Yeah,
right?
and it came to fruition,
Yep.
A few years later. So that was kind of the birth of it. And I suppose, I think what Erik and I have always been really good at, and it's one thing after we give different talks at different colleges and stuff, and even just talking to other entrepreneurs, it's just almost naivety just to throw yourself headfirst into something. We just said, we whacked up a Facebook page, and I still have the post of here we are,
yeah.
We're online, we're open for business, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We had no clients, no nothing, but we're let's just go figure it out.
And I think one of the biggest takeaways you learn is everyone's asking, how do you start a business? Or I'm reading all these books and I'm learning, or what books do you recommend? And it's I can go on and on about recommending books and courses and all that, but the reality is you kind of got to start, and you got to go and figure it out and see where it's going to take you, because, I don't think success is guaranteed in any way, shape or form, but the journey, a road to either success or failure is going to be ahead of you, and you just kind of got to get out there and start walking it.
Yeah, it's always even for this podcast, again, this will refine over time. It will hopefully get better, and it will also refine and really form into something we want to do. But we were just it was over a couple of beers. We were let's start documenting. We're having these conversations. Let's start documenting them for our own sake, put them on the internet, and maybe there could be some value in it, because we love chatting about business. It's basically all we talk about.
Right.
So we're let's do it, and that's been the case for the last 6+ years. So, and then Grafton, obviously, spoiler alert, has taken many faces over the last 6 years. But it started with the intention of, we're going to help small to medium-sized local businesses, SMEs, with their online presence, and let's go figure it out from there.
That's right.
And that was the pain point we went after, and we learned over time that some of that was correct, some of it wasn't correct. We weren't the right people to pull some of it off, and that's okay. Timing is it, the right people is it, but we're big ones on just start, we'll learn, we'll evolve. And again, as long as you just keep showing up, you're just consistent with it, and you just don't get deterred and stop, you'll usually figure it out.
Yeah. Totally agree. And then I think where COVID, do you remember COVID kind of kicked in?
Yeah, it was rough, yeah.
And we had kind of a small and niche operation. We were doing some graphic design. I think we had a number of social media clients. It was just starting to churn and move forward. We had a couple of website design clients, and we've got some really good people that started with us.
Yeah.
Shane, Sean, some real talent out there. And I think then COVID kind of came knocking on the door, and it was a real uncertain time, because I think primarily we had hospitality clients which were hugely affected by COVID, and it was a little bit of, well, what do we do? So it was a real pivoting moment for us to get hit and try to figure it out,
Yeah. I still remember one of the most impactful moments of my career to date at that point is we had all the guys in the office, and I think there's about 9 of us in the office.
Yeah.
COVID was kicking in. Lockdown hadn't kicked in yet because we were all still in the office. And I remember one of our team turned to me and said, in front of everyone, what are we going to do? What's going to happen next? And I remember that being a real moment where, I had no idea.
What do we do? What do we do?
The Irish government didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of saying, and this is what we did, is guys, we're going to keep pushing really hard. We're going to keep trying to evolve in the market. and we came out with some new products like the quick online shop for companies locally.
Remember we hired like a small sales team, and we had like this whiteboard where it was just like lined up with company name, contract value, last note, because we didn't have any CRMs, HubSpot or any of that.
We didn't know how to spell CRMs.
It was as basic as that, to be fair. And we were like, okay, let's start to grow this. And like, I remember looking at the whiteboard, and there was like 30, 40, 50,000 of a pipeline being built by a small sales team. I think it was 3-4 of us. Yeah. And we were pushing, and it was like, let's try to close these guys. And that has really fueled our growth. Like one day to another, we started closing significant revenue and started really growing it. And from like utilizing government incentives to going out there and, you know, forging these relationships with businesses that needed our help there and then, by offering that payment plan of a product of, you can go in e-commerce from $250 a month, you know, or euros a month. And it was something that's like pretty funny, because we undervalued our service so much, but our intention was, let's get these companies to survive, because they will thrive again. So we were nearly betting on these companies to thrive again. And I still remember there was this one company, it was local enough, but it was, you know, established they're
decades, like 30, 40 years.
I was going to say 40 years trading. And this company came to us and they're like, guys, we need a way to reach our local audience. And I got them onto this €250 product a month. And we just built this e-commerce store. It took them 2-3 weeks to adapt, and it has saved their business. And to this date, we have a really strong relationship, and they're still a customer, and they're a growing business, and they've really tapped into the whole digital transformation since then. But that was just a significant moment for them of, are we going to survive? We're not going to be able to. They were, I think they were a B2B business, primarily supplying hospitality products to hospitality. And obviously they weren't buying as much, so they had to create a B2C arm. And, but yeah, I think that was like a real defining moment of our business, to actually get access to quite a large volume of closing deals.
Yeah, no, and like, I suppose we were still always, and still to today, you know, refining the offering, because like, I suppose overnight when COVID kicked in, all our hospitality clients closed, we basically lost all our social media clients overnight, which was the lifeblood of the company.
Pretty sad moments.
No, it was tough.
Getting those phone calls of like, guys, we're going to pause this contract. We're going to reconsider now. It's like, oh my God, I got a payroll and we got a savage team, and we just like started hitting momentum. So I was like, oh God, what do we do?
That's why we pivoted into, okay, let's start focusing on sales. Let's focus on websites, because again, a lot of SMEs still didn't have websites at this point, or they had websites that done 15 years ago, and they're like, oh, we don't need to touch it again.
It wasn't transactional. It wasn't ready to make money.
Yeah, they're like, well, we've been doing business like this for 30 years. Why do we need to have an e-commerce function? And then when COVID kicked in, it forced a lot of companies to consider that. And we just happened to be right place, right time. We then also put fuel in the fire by hiring a sales team to really start going and talking to these business owners. Like, I traveled the country, all the way around the country.
And do you remember at this point when we hired the sales team, we've got like no money in the bank.
Yeah.
And we were like down to our last like week or two of runway, and we were like, well, it's now or never, so it's either going to make us bankrupt or it's going to make us, rich. Yeah. And like, it didn't make us rich, but it made us survive and thrive and to start, go for it. But I just remember we just looked at each other. We both just knew we had to do it. Yeah. Because it was that or we were going to run out of cash.
Yeah, no. And like, again, because like, if you think about it, you were still working another one job. I think at this point you were working one job. You'd quit the second job. Yeah. I was full time on this with the team, and it was a case of, okay, we need to double down and keep doing this. And there's definitely, but let's keep this high level anyway. So kind of give an overview. Yeah. So anyways, we end up we're a year and a half into COVID. We end up getting rid of social media. We were like, we want to be a necessity business, not nice to have, because what we found, and this is all through the learning of actually doing, is that especially SMEs cut marketing quite quickly once recessions hit, COVID hit, and we said we never want to build a nice to have business. We want to build a necessity business. Websites, necessity. Apps, necessity. Any sort of internal software that actually save time and effort, all necessity. And this is what the basis of building the next evolution of Grafton was, of how can we be so important that when tough times come along to businesses, which will always happen, and we've seen a couple iterations of that we're not the first ones to get chopped.
Yeah. And also, I think with social media, it's a way more transactional, performance-based engagement. So the minute you stop performing as well as you started, because a lot of businesses don't actually understand marketing is more of a marathon rather than a sprint. And obviously it depends on trends, the type of business you're at.
Organic, like it's
right.
like there's loads of niche. We were very broad in it as well. We didn't.
Yeah, and like Ireland is a very small market for trade. So doing e-commerce and getting out there, it's either you're going to win big or you're going to be grinding small. So it's and there's stages of it. And I think a lot of Irish businesses at that time when they were hurt weren't prepared to invest into that venture of unknowns, because it's like a lottery ticket sometimes from the outset. But if you actually know what you're doing, you trust the process, we've seen significant results from all sorts of brands. But I think going back to it just a little bit of, do you remember when like I think it was coming to December, and we had this conversation around, you mentioned that I had a second job, so I was working part-time, and do you remember when we kind of sat down in the boardroom, in our old boardroom, and you were like, are you in on this or what's going on? And I remember it was like a tough moment in a way, because I was like, do I make this jump or do I not make this jump? But I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Yeah, you can always pick back up a job.
Always get another job. Yeah.
So we were like, let's get started. Let's go into this full time.
But I even think is an element of, I went straight from school, finishing school, I went straight into this, where you had started earning a good salary, you were making good money, and you were like, I need to take this big step back in your head, earning wise, security wise, and take a full leap on this. But I think once you start seeing momentum, you're like, okay, I'm either going to double down on this. And I think there was a couple of pivotal conversations you had with different people around, okay, Erik, are you taking this seriously? You're not taking this seriously? Because I think anyone we know now, it's like, it's scary to take that full leap. And I think you did end up making that decision and doubling down, which was a very good decision. I think it turned out very good.
It turned out okay.
Yeah. But I think that, absolutely. It was a big jump for you because you take a step back, but I think it was the right move at the time.
I think so. And like, I think starting an agency was one of our best decisions, because we got to learn so many facets of business very fast. Yeah. We got a taste of hospitality, transport, everything really quick, because you're basically an outsourced marketing company. Companies are going to start sharing their operation, their, paths of success and failures and everything. I think we had accelerated learning for the first few years until we defined on what we wanted to offer.
Well, I think like the way I always described what we did with Grafton was, and the way I always looked at it, was that we're doing our apprenticeship in entrepreneurship.
That's great, yeah.
And the amazing thing, as a service provider to lots of companies, we talk to business owners, all levels of, sort of revenue, all stages of doing well and not well, people getting up off the ground, working with initial tech startups. Like, we worked with had so many different conversations, and we're very fortunate to be let in on some very sensitive information to hear, like, who's really doing well, who's struggling, what are they doing well, and see that over time and be, help them at times in different areas. And it was an amazing insight that we could not have asked for better, because if we started a one thing where we weren't working with lots of different businesses, we wouldn't have had the same insights we did get.
I don't think so. I think we're very fortunate to have gone through the path that we went through. I think I've definitely learned a lot, and I think the future is bright on that level, that we're trying to turn those learnings into earnings. And that's always the journey. It doesn't stop. It depends where you want to go, but I don't think that process stops.
Well, I think like there's always a new level of business. There's always a new level you can unlock, and again,
what's that saying? Every
new levels, new devils.
New levels, new devils. It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. The bigger you get, you always think that, oh well, if I reach this or if I reach this, it gets easier. It actually gets easier in one way, but it's actually more in depth, harder in other ways. So you got to level up the character you're building.
So then I suppose let's talk about let's speed up a little more today, because over the next few weeks, and as we tell more stories, we'll kind of hear bits and pieces, but I suppose we want to keep this as concise as possible and give you a bit of a taste of who we are. I suppose then Grafton obviously had its feet 2.0 and digitalization and working with kind of large scale enterprise, and I'll let you get into it. I suppose Erik and I were working together up until this year. Erik actually bought me out of Grafton, which allowed me to set up Magnate, which again I'll talk about in a bit. But I suppose really within this level of Grafton, working in digitalization, working with companies in the US, we launched an office in the US in 2021. And
during COVID, like you do.
Yeah, which was not easy. But I suppose where are you at today? You know, because it's very different from 2020, 2021. The company's very different now in 2024, going to 2025. Where are you at today? What are you currently working on? And then obviously I'll talk a bit about where I'm at currently as well.
Yeah, sure. Like in 2024, it was a real defining moment for Grafton to have, because we started pivoting into digital transformation clients last year, and every time I just kind of have this learning of everything we start, it takes 3 to 6 months for us to feel it and to really get an implementation of that. So I remember we got our first real large digital transformation client I think early last year, and that grew into just a couple, and while trying to maintain our software development department and everything, it was a hustle, because you're trying to always build ahead and scale the team. But it was only really this year that we've really had real definition of what Grafton Digital is. And it's a real partner for certain businesses. So we've really chosen our ICP, our ideal customer profile, to be business owners with multiple businesses or with high net worth who really need a specialized partner in digital transformation. And that be it from small tasks like getting their website up to date, contracting in the best agencies in the world for paid ads, for content creation, or whatever it be. We became this trusted partner for these companies across Ireland, a little bit in the UK, recently Australia, and then obviously in the US, primarily between Boston and New York. So I think that's summarizes up Grafton to date. We work on both software development projects where companies have just raised or post-raise. So we're trying to build their technology for enterprise use and trying to get them to go to market. We're really good at that. And that's me. I suppose that arches from me now at the moment of kind of consulting and advising these companies. I think that's been a real interest for companies coming to work with Grafton is, okay, we want to get a taste of both business, but we also want to get a taste of software. And what I tend to build my, I suppose, brand around is I'm trying to be an interconnector for people and for enterprise, and trying to get involved in as much as I can, depending on how much time I have or what sort of expertise I have in that certain space. And then this year as well, I've actually gone into joined a company with kind of joined forces with a group of companies, and I'm getting a taste of kind of enterprise advisory on how do we build multiple products in multiple markets, serving different industries using, I suppose, similar templates, and really gone into that in the education space. So that's been a real big transformation for me, kind of jumping from company to company. So it really made me this year to focus in on systems. How do I manage my time? Really difficult and haven't mastered it yet. But how do I manage time? How do I, grow these multiple, you got to keep these wheels spinning all the time. So next year I have real ambition in continue growing the digital transformation side of the business, but I'm going to focus in on the education and the whole software in on that. So we've got some big goals and big missions I'll share throughout the weeks of the podcast. But that's been what I was at for the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, and I suppose so this year Erik had bought me out of Grafton. My desire had always been, and again, like I talked about, an apprenticeship is Grafton was always my learning ground. Erik is excellent at service-based business. He's excellent in the advisory space. I always wanted to get my teeth into product. So this year we've broken apart slightly, and I'm now building a software. It's
an interesting experience.
It was, and we will get into that over time as well, because there's actually a lot of learnings out of that as well.
Huge.
99% of them you don't end up talking afterwards, but we're now 9 months.
You're still okay.
Yeah, 6 months later, and we're talking now on camera. Yeah. But I suppose I'm currently working on a software called Magnate. It's to solve executive communication issues. A lot of people have multiple inboxes and lots of communications, 1,000+ messages a week, and I'm building a software to make that more efficient and help them regain time and control of their workflow and allow them to focus on big strategic decisions and remove this fluff of thousands of messages a week. So again, I'll get more into that over time. I'm going grassroots. We're currently in the NDRC pre-accelerator at the moment. We'll be raising capital soon, and I'm doing a very different journey where Eric's doing kind of enterprise consultancy and working on multiple different products. I'm currently going grassroots. So I think it'll be interesting us both talking about our experiences, because they're all inside the term business, but they're all very different. We also then, I suppose, this year have opened a car park in Galway City. That's primarily aimed at commercial customers nearby. So the pain point is that parking in Galway is, one, very expensive, and two, very unreliable. So we were able to take over a car park in a very prime location in Galway City with full digital online bookings, and we're doing commercial car parking for companies nearby. So that's been really interesting, because it's a world apart from there's just software side. It obviously is introducing hardware, it's introducing having actual property, maintenance of property. Lots and lots of
fighting nature.
Seagulls have been one of our biggest issues with this current venture. But again, and we'll get into this over time as well. But I think Eric and I just have a serious love for business, and we want to taste all areas of business. And I think that
we love building with nothing.
Yes, and we love throwing ourselves in head first, and that's why we call this podcast Built from Scratch, because it literally started in a classroom in Clare, Galway, in the west of Ireland, for anyone listening internationally. Very west coast, 2 hours plus from Dublin, and just on a whim of, let's build an international company and figure it out.
When we got like $6,000, let's just throw it in, let's see where we go.
And we're completely bootstrapped in that first company as well. There was never any capital raised and very little grant aid, because we didn't really fit in the boxes, but we the better for it. And again, I suppose we're still here 6 years later doing it, and we'll hopefully spend the rest of our lives doing this as well. And I think this is why this podcast comes from a real true area of passion of, okay, how can we document what we're doing? Because I want to be able to look back and see what 23-year-old Daragh was thinking about at the time. So I hope this gives a good overview onto kind of who Erik is, who Daragh is. And again, over the next few weeks, you'll probably learn more and more about the two of us and the different learnings of it, and you'll hear stories from the past. And then as things are going on, because I really think that I'm really looking forward to kind of document this every week, and we're going to be posting Sunday evenings, so there'll be kind of good content then for the start of the week. And again, feedback is more than welcome as well. So
100%, and questions, topics, anybody wants us to discuss or talk about, like, I think myself and Daragh are totally open. There's obviously a handful of questions we regularly get asked, so we'll try to address them throughout the podcast. And but if anybody wants us to discuss any topics or zoom into any side of what we're doing or what we've experienced, I'm very open. Daragh's very open for that. So I'm really excited for this. I think a big goal here is to maintain consistency. I've started my YouTube career, and 3 videos later I've ended it. So it's a big one, but I think now that we've got a really cool team, I want to talk about them, in a couple of podcasts episodes from now, but we've got a really good team, so I'm very, very excited to have them on board to edit, to help us to strategize and to build from scratch into something that people enjoy listening to. So
I'm really excited about it. We're gonna go weekly, and I also think that I want to introduce into the show that over time is that people send a voice note in with a question or commentary, or
that's a good idea.
Two cents. I want to do that weekly as well. Once we start building up people listening to this, because I'd love to introduce an element of, it's not gonna be a guest based podcast. If someone's interested in Galway and we're like, hey, let's pick up a mic and start talking, we will absolutely do that. We're not going to be strictly against it, but primarily this is Erik and I as two people in our early 20s just trying to figure it out in business, and here's what our learnings are from the week, and hopefully that can add some value, because in business, and as we've seen from different mentors we've had over the years, one sentence, one statement, one idea can save you so much time.
It can really define your future. I think we've really experienced that over the last couple of years. We'll get into that in a couple of episodes from now.
Okay, well, this is episode 1 of Built from Scratch. Thank you very much for anyone who made it through this entire first episode. Thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate it. Anyone with any feedback, please do send us a DM. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. Send it on in. We really do want to hear it. And again, we're going to keep trying to be as transparent as possible.
Did you call Twitter Twitter? X.
Yeah, X.
Elon Musk is going to be very upset already.
X.com.
Yeah.
X.com. We're going to be on all audio platforms. So again, please do engage. And anything you want us to cover, we would love to do so. And we're going to keep trying to document transparently as much as we can. Obviously, there's some confidentiality bits we can't, explicitly name and shame or whatever, but we will do our best to be as transparent as possible because that's where all the value is.
Yeah. And I think this is where I say, like this podcast, subscribe to our podcast, and follow us or do whatever has to be done in 2024. I think we have to have an outro as well, right?
Yeah. We'll figure out the outro. It's just engage with us on all platforms, give us a follow, and we'll keep pumping these out.
Yep.
Right. Thank you for listening. Talk to you next week.
Bye.